Seated. Good evening, saints. Good evening, sinners. Just like Pastor Kate said, this is kind of one of my favorite times in the sanctuary when the sun is coming in. But if you stare for more than a second, the Last Supper will be emblazoned on your retinas for the rest of the day. But it's a beautiful night. And I love, especially for Maundy Thursday, that the Last Supper is lit up in such a way for us as we reflect on this story from Jesus' life. We call today Maundy Thursday, all right? It's not Monday Thursday, which is what I believed it was for a long time growing up in Wichita Falls, Texas. All of their accents made me think that today was Maundy Thursday, and I thought as a little child, why would you want to celebrate Monday twice in 1 week? One time is enough for Monday, but today is Maundy Thursday. And for us, it comes from the Latin word for mandate, mandatum. And tonight is the night when we remember a new mandate that Jesus gave to his disciples, that Jesus gave to this world, a new commandment to love one another as I have loved you. And that's what we celebrate tonight, this last meal and the scene for Jesus and his final opportunity to pass along his wisdom and his teaching and give his spirit to his friends, those closest disciples. He tells them this new mandate, to love one another as I have loved you. In English, in kind of our modern culture right now, we tend to treat love as a noun, all right? We tend to treat love as a noun. It is a thing, it is a feeling, it is a state of being. But when we talk about love, we're usually talking about those three kind of categories, a thing, a feeling, or a state of being. As a thing, some examples of when we talk about love as a thing, many of you know of my love for tacos, right? I think they are the perfect kind of meal. You've got your tortilla, and you can eat that for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or even a later snack as well. I have a great love for tacos, and maybe y'all have a great love for a certain kind of food as well. That's love as a thing. I have a love for the Longhorns. You knew that was going to show up at some point this week. I have a love for the Longhorns, right? And that is my love as a thing. And you have probably a love for your favorite school. I have a love for Texas. I think this is a pretty special state, especially on a day like today after the big rains and the weather is just kind of the way that it is and that sun is out there. It's beautiful and gorgeous to me. I have a love for Texas. I have a love for the United States of America as well. I think it's a pretty special place. That's love as a thing when we talk about those kinds of aspects of love. There's also love as a feeling. And this happens when you meet someone special or you have your family around you, that you have love for them. And I have love for my family. They are the ones that God has given to me, and I try to love them the best that I can. I have a love for my family. And I have a great love for my family because I look out into this world and I see other families and I wonder, how in the world can anyone love these folks, right? Thankfully, they are not my family, and I have a family. And I'm sure some people look at my family and go, how can they love one another as well with that? But that's love as a feeling. It creates warmth, it creates gladness. There's a sense of happiness about that as well, but there's also a sense of duty and obligation that goes with that as well. I've heard a phrase that says, family is the only place when you go there, they have to take you in, right? Some other places they could leave you out, but family, when you go there, they have to take you in. And I have a love for my family. That's love as a feeling. And then there's love as a state of being, and if you're fortunate enough to be in love with something really special or someone really special, you know what I'm talking about. And we often use the phrase, I'm in love. I'm in it. And that's that little phrase, that prepositional phrase, I'm in love. Love is a noun. I'm there. And that's my state of being. And there is that warmth, and there is that gladness that is there. But most often when we're talking about love, we think about it in those categories. We think about it as a noun, as an object, as something that can be rather static at times, that doesn't necessarily move. And especially when we think about it as a state of being, oftentimes when things happen, when those warm and glad feelings, those positive energy that goes along with love, when that stuff begins to diminish or disappear, or we get angry and we don't feel that warmth and that gladness, we begin to wonder, am I out of love? If I'm no longer in love, am I out of love? So when we're talking about Jesus' new mandate, his commandment, to love one another as I have loved you, I think we have to recognize first that most of the time when we're talking about love, we think about it as a noun. But I don't think Jesus wants us to love one another as a noun. When Jesus says, love one another as I have loved you, he's talking about love as a verb. Love as an active state. Love as movement. Love as doing something. Love as engaging other people. And love as a verb is way different than love as a noun. Love as a verb is about a conscious choice that is made. It's about a behavior more than a feeling. In fact, some of the feelings that we tend to associate with love don't even have to be present when you engage love as a behavior, like that sense of warmth or gladness or positive energy that goes along with love. When you choose love as a verb, love as a behavior, some of those things don't even have to be present. Because it means that the person on the other end receiving that love doesn't necessarily have to be worthy of that love or have a certain kind of lovability about them. Like if they are really nice to me, then I will gladly take care of them. But when Jesus says, love one another as I have loved you, he's not adding qualifications onto how we love others. He's telling us to make a choice to take care of the needs of someone else, regardless of whether they reciprocate or acknowledge or are grateful for that at all. He says, make a choice. And love as a verb is love as a choice. Jesus can make this choice because he is of God, and God is love. God is a verb. God is not a noun. God is not a thing. God is not a feeling. God is not a state of being. God is a verb. God is active. God is moving. God is not static, not passive, not sitting around just waiting for something to happen. God makes things happen, and God makes things happen out of his love. And God chooses to love us. Jesus chooses to love us. And love as a verb, if you're watching someone and the kind of love that they're sharing, is it love as a noun or love as a verb, you tend to watch their actions and what they're doing. And on this night, after that meal, before that meal, Jesus gets down on his knees and he starts washing the feet of those who are closest to him. And they don't always get it right. They don't always understand Jesus. They frustrate him at times. Often throughout the gospel, you'll hear him tell the disciples, you have little faith. Get with it, right? They upset him. The crowds upset him. He gets frustrated. One of them will betray him by turning him over to the authorities. And you can see Judas here on the left side of our stained glass. He's taking off. He's already got the bag of silver in his hands. He washes Judas's feet, but he washes the feet of all others, and they will betray him as well. They will turn their backs on him at the moment where he needs them the most, at the cross. He loves them as a verb. He's not loving them because they've all dedicated themselves and they say, well, no, we'll never leave you, we'll never abandon you, we will always be with you in that moment. He loves them despite how they will respond when the chips fall. He washes their feet. He kneels at their feet. And he kneels at your feet as well. He takes care of you. He chooses to love you. Even when you upset him or you haven't gotten it right and figured it out and have frustrated him, he still loves you because he's creating a space for you to be there. He makes that choice because God is love and he is of God. And he calls us to love one another to the end, to love as a verb. We can choose to love God back, only after we've received that love in our lives first. I want you to get this right. So I grew up in a place saying you need to choose God. You need to make a decision for Christ. You need to come to that moment. So when you do that, then everything will be right all of a sudden. But it's based all on what I decide and when I decide and how I do that. As Lutherans, what we say is Jesus chooses to love us so that we can choose to love God. God is always the one moving towards us first. God is always the one acting towards us in God's grace, moving in such a way that creates a generous response out of us to say, well, how can I love you back? How can I be active in that love? How can I engage in those things as well? Jesus chooses to love you so that you can choose to love as well. We see examples of this kind of love, this kind of sacrificial, behavioral, verb kind of love all around us. And a couple of examples that pop to mind for me are nurses who take care of patients. When you're sick, you're in a bed and things aren't going right for you, it's a scary time. And you can be rather impatient. It's funny that we call people who are sick patients like they have a bunch of it, but rather when you're in that moment, all you want to be is healthy and well, and you want to do that soon, so we're rather impatient. It's kind of ironic. And often in your impatience, you can be rather rude to those who are taking care of you, especially nurses. But they're not there to take care of you based on how well you respond to them. They're there to take care of you because they made a pledge, they made a choice, they made a commitment to see you to your healthiness, to see you to wholeness. And that's the kind of love that we're called to embody. I think of teachers who are teaching their students, especially in our culture, with a lot of helicopter parents who think that their kids can do no wrong, and if there's anything wrong with the kid, it must be someone else's fault. It's not ever the kid's fault or the family's fault, it's somebody else's fault. And so teachers operating in that kind of environment make a choice to love that kid, to take care of that kid. They're competing for time with all the extracurriculars and the busyness of kids as well, but they're still investing. They're still scattering seeds of hope and knowledge and wisdom into their lives, hoping that it will take root and it will sprout. But they make a choice in their vocation as they teach to love those children, to help them grow up to become the fullness of who God wants them to be. This is love as a verb. This is the kind of love that Jesus calls us to when he says, love one another as I have loved you. And I pray that that love will become known in your life, not only in your life, but through your life towards those whom God puts in your path. Amen.